Hello and welcome to DBE News. Thank you once again for staying with us. This bulletin airs every Friday either at 12 p.m. on the DBE TV channel 122 if you have an OpenView decoder, or Bricks TV channel 509 at 4:30 in the afternoon if you are a StarSat subscriber, or watch it on the Department of Basic Education's YouTube channel. Please do share the link with your friends, family and anyone in your circles. My name is Tsegohajo Moagi. The top stories this week: Cabinet has reviewed the resumption of schooling to full-time learning in all schools. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga continues her monitoring visits to schools. The annual Basic Education lekgotla concludes with preparations to reboot the basic education sector. The Departments of Health and Basic Education will embark on booster shots vaccination campaign for educators. We hear from General and Education Assistants in Mpumalanga who are part of the second phase of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative. We would love to hear from you, so please get in touch with us by using our social media platforms on Twitter at DBE_SA and at DBE TV News, Facebook DBESA, Instagram DBESA. You can use the hashtag DBE News. Let's start here. Cabinet has reviewed the resumption of schooling to full-time learning in all schools. Primary, secondary and special schools will return to daily attendance. The regulatory provision for social distancing of 1 meter for learners in schools has also been removed. More details on this can be found on the Basic Education website. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga says schools must use every minute they have for teaching and learning. Motshekga urged teachers and staff to go back to basics as the academic year gets underway in earnest. Motshekga visited schools in the Gauteng province where learner admission challenges were experienced the most. She said it is now the time to go back to focusing on the key tasks that include coverage and learner support. The minister visited 4 schools earlier this week in KwaThema in Springs. She took the time to remind parents and guardians about the need for the early childhood development shift from the Department of Social Development to basic education.
Everything equal, I would have asked for a meeting with ECD practitioners so that we don't have the time. We might have to come for ECD. Because as you might be aware that from April this year, ECD, in line with international practice, we're one of the very few countries where ECD was under social development. So our country has decided that ECD must be coordinated by basic education, working with social development, health, local government, home affairs, police, to integrate or to coordinate ECD matters. So that if, for instance, we shouldn't have a situation where kids are in grade 12, it said it's a South African Marangana pass. All the 12 years we didn't intervene to assist the child. So if a child comes to a school, has no ID, we have a responsibility to register the child. But in the meantime, working with Home Affairs, we must sort that out.
To this now, teachers have been urged to get their booster shots at vaccination sites nearest to them. The Chief Director to Care and Support at the Department of Basic Education says educators do not need to register but should just present themselves to get their jabs. She's added that as part of creating stability in the sector, teachers and staff should go get their booster jabs as part of the safety first approach in schools.
Academic year 2022 has started. All our learners are going back to school, but we are still not out of COVID yet. So the Department of Basic Education will be supporting the country in its vaccination campaign. As the department, we will be supporting our educators to do their booster vaccine. So we are calling on all educators to go and get their booster vaccination. Starting next week, the minister will announce when the teachers can go. Also, as the department, we will be vaccinating our learners. As you all are aware that the NCCC has announced last year that the ages of 12 to 17-year-olds were also could be vaccinated. So we'll have pop-up sites in our schools to facilitate and ensure that all our learners are vaccinated.
Stay tuned. After the break, we find out how the basic education lekgotla went and decisions that have been made. Welcome back. The Basic Education lekgotla has been hailed as a success. The gathering of all basic education stakeholders took place in Kempton Park over a 3-day period. Minister Angie Motshekga opened the lekgotla and urged delegates to tap on international experience when considering the curriculum recovery approaches resulting from the COVID-19 learning losses.
We know that we must assess our progress that we've made also in implementing previous agreements, decisions that we took in the other 6 lekgotlas. Look at programs that we need also to continue to consolidate and strengthen to equip learners with knowledge and skills for a changing world. We all intend that the lekgotla must focus on foundational skills, which in the previous lekgotlas we had said that's sometimes where our problem is in terms of the quality outputs that we get at the end of the system. So looking at concrete and short-term and medium-term plans for the curriculum and also for teacher development response. We also need to build coherent responses on measures and chairperson of the NECT borrowing from the reports and the programs of the NECT. We also using the language to reboot and rebuild the basic education system, which has been battered by 2 years of COVID-19. In the end, we wish to strengthen the basic education ecosystem so that it is future-proof against subsequent pandemics.
Motshekga said the focus of the sector must always be on improving the quality of education offered in public schools.
So our responsibility as government is to offer the highest quality of education to all learners in a safe and secure environment. As a policy, the National Development Plan, we do envisage that all our schools will by 2030 offer the best quality learning and teaching with significantly improved learner outcomes. And now during the countdown, we're already on 2022. And these lekgotlas are supposed to help us to say, in the remaining 7 years, because now we're now on starting with the 8th year, how far will we be and what do we need to do to fast track so that we do indeed meet the objectives which have been set up by the NDP. It is also envisaged that performance in South African learners in international standard tests should continue to be comparable to those learners from countries with a similar level of development and with similar access. And that's what the NDP instructs us to do. And we remain committed to achieving these lofty ideas.
Teacher unions also had an opportunity to make input but also facilitate some of the sessions in the packed program of the lekgotla. Executive Director of NAPTOSA, Basil Manuel, said the needs of teachers need to be taken into consideration. He's added that monitoring learners without support is valueless.
Our teachers, our practitioners, they are fully aware of the need and they are fully accepting of the need that curriculum coverage must happen and that assessments need to be monitored. That's not their issue. The role of the heads of department, as in a school head of department, not a provincial head, is absolutely accepted, except for one thing, that the tools for monitoring both curriculum coverage and assessment have become a burden, a ticking sheet exercise, which we hold up and we assume that they are correct. People tell you what you want to know. And let's not delude ourselves for 1 minute. If the curriculum coverage and the monitoring is only about ticking sheets, you'll get perfect sheets every time. So let's focus on where the need should be. We need to look at what teachers see as an administrative overload, ticking sheets. We need to see what the role of the school head of department is and give them that space instead of giving them the space to only be part of the management of the school. They are curriculum leaders. And if we don't make them curriculum leaders, they will not do the job. And then we have to send out countless ticking sheets to determine whether the people have actually done the work or not. And we're still none the wiser because they told you what they thought you want to know. Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk curriculum coverage, one of the most confusing things, and we've even seen it today, is confusion about assessment for or assessment of learning. And we need to wrap our heads around why we assess. Because too often we preach assessment for learning, but we practice assessment of learning. And that is where things come apart. Because we have become so ingrained and adapted to a curriculum that is about the academic child.
Meanwhile, the Deputy General Secretary of SATU, Nkosana Dolopi, said although the union agrees with what has been said by the department, the issue, however, of a shortage of teachers needs to be addressed. He's also urged that teachers be given the space to realize their full potential.
The biggest challenge remains striking a balance between curriculum completion and authentic learning. Challenges that we need to address to make sure that we realize both curriculum coverage and authentic learning will be to address issues of shortages of teachers, cut out of field teaching, teacher competencies, and addressing the socio-economic conditions in our country. We moving towards concluding to say that we agree with Dr. Polia representing the department to say that our country is overemphasizing summative assessment. And we agree, we are excited when through you, Dr. Polia, the department is saying that we will have to emphasize and foreground formative assessment as opposed to summative assessment. We agree and we're excited by what the department said through you, Dr. Polia, to say that we'll have to lessen the question of over-testing our children, putting teachers under pressure, lessening the question of giving them this task all the time. So we are excited about the good news that you're putting to us.
For more details on this, visit the Basic Education website. The basic education system needs to be rebooted in order to recover from the devastating impact of COVID-19 on learning. This was said by the Chief Executive Officer of the National Education Collaboration Trust, Godwin Khoza. Khoza was speaking at the Basic Education Lekgotla in Kempton Park. Our reporter, Robinson Ngola, was there and he filed this report.
Research shows that the entire basic education system needs to be rebooted if it is to recover from the negative effects of the coronavirus. In his presentation at the Basic Education Lekgotla, Godwin Khoza says the learning losses were too large and that a new approach is needed to get the system back on track. Khoza has added that these two issues should not be the only focus when rebooting the education system.
The last In fact, the third, but not last, is building back better. Building back better is an American, concept. The Americans have pushed that a lot, and in fact, the West has embraced that from the previous disasters. We do not particularly have to go about it the same way that the Americans have done it. But literature points to some key principles that underpin the process of building back better. Firstly, it's, consciousness to take up the space that has been created by the pandemic to fix some things or take big leaps into the future in a big way. So Mr. Ngasana was saying yesterday that, we've done some things, big things, that we would never have done under normal, circumstances. So that whole concept actually allows us to reflect and identify the key things that we can do to make big leaps into the future. And key to those amongst the programs that have been adopted by other systems, including private sector systems, are actually cementing the social justice agenda. In here, in the past 2 years, we've been quite concerned about the differences in how the haves and the have-nots have actually experienced, COVID-19 and so on. And the world is very, very conscious about, putting at the center the social justice agenda. 2 is environmental sustainability. I don't have to say much of that. The environmental disasters that we're seeing across the world. We know who contributes much to the destruction of the environment. But even in our shores, we don't have to wait until it worsens before we start doing something in that space. 3 is innovation, of course, taking the space to innovate. And the 4th is actually mitigating the impact of the future disasters.
While the dropout rate remains a concern, senior researcher Professor Martin Gustafson said it was surprising that more learners were able to get their national senior certificate even during the pandemic.
Many of you would be aware that we're sitting with a situation where about 45% of our youths do not get the NSC. And about 42% don't get anything at that level. They don't get an alternative at a college. Remembering, of course, that many of the college graduates, the TVET college graduates, already have the Matric. So they're actually getting 2. All right. So just under half of our youths are not getting any qualification at that level, at the NSC level. Now, we thought that would worsen during the pandemic. The situation has actually improved, and that's the big surprise. I mean, the minister was referring to the worsening of the pass rate. That is true, and that is concerning. But the pass rate worsened in a context where the number of candidates rose enormously. So at the end of 2021, we had about 540,000 achievers, people getting the NSC. That's way above what we have ever seen before. The highest before that was in 2015, when we had about 460,000 successful matriculants. So this really has been a surprise. And we still need to really understand how this came about. Some of it is repetition of grade 12s from 2020 into 2021, but it's emerging that most of this had to do with the way learners were pushed through from grade 11 into grade 12. But actually, and perhaps the pandemic has actually improved our performance against this indicator, what happens in future years will, of course, determine the longer-term effects of this. But ironically, during the pandemic, we've actually seen a greater proportion of youths get the Matric. By accident. This is not how we planned it.
Professor Gustafson added that the dropout rate was more significant at the primary school level.
This is from the report that's publicly available, and it shows that we had this surprising increase in the number of youths at particular ages between 2020 and 2021. So this is this surprise where we did not see a worsening of dropping out at the secondary level. There was that smaller loss at the primary level that I've referred to just now, and this is where that primary level loss has been occurring. So the red and purple, a band across the middle of the country, much of Eastern Cape, much of Northern Cape. Northern Cape has suffered quite seriously. It's a small province in terms of numbers, so it doesn't affect the national statistics badly, but Northern Cape clearly has a problem. Some of KwaZulu-Natal's coastal areas as well. This is another fairly important slide. So before the pandemic, about 3% of contact time was being lost simply because learners were being absent, learners get ill, and so on. The systems that we currently have show that in the second half of 2021, we were losing 10% of contact time. But that's an understatement, and this comes to the problem that we have with some of these systems. And the problems are twofold. Number one, there are schools that don't enter anyone as absent. Now that's, for those of you who know schools, that's virtually impossible. For no learner to ever be absent during half a year. Those schools are clearly not using the systems properly. And then there are also schools that have not entered the rotational arrangements when they should have, but there are ways of detecting where this is happening. And when we look at the data, we conclude what the NECT concluded, that last year, in the second half, about a third of primary schools were rotating. And that takes us to this 22% loss that I spoke about earlier. But remember, it's a very unequal number. For a third of learners in the second half of 2021, they were still losing about half of their time.
The basic education sector has remained determined to ensure that no more learning losses occur. Robinson Ngola, reporting for DBE TV News in Johannesburg.
Now, after the break, we hear from general and education assistants in Mpumalanga. Stay tuned.
Siyabangena. Woza Matric is back and better than ever, with catch-up lessons, revision and learning support on more platforms than ever before. There are great support materials on the DBE cloud. Find us on television and revise 10 subjects. And if you miss something, relax, Ntwana. Go to our YouTube channel or DSTV catch-up. Need help? Check out Vele, our Telegram-based chat platform where teachers are waiting to help you. Prefer WhatsApp? Send questions or voice notes to our Woza Matric WhatsApp line. And that's not all. Want to test yourself? Check out the Matric Live app. Hey Matric 2021, we've got you covered. Confused where to go? Visit the Woza Matric website at wozamatrix.co.za. Woza Matric.
Welcome back. The second phase of the presidential employment stimulus with the basic education sector is well underway in all provinces. Phase 1 of the initiative was successfully implemented from the 1st of December 2020 until the 31st of April 2021 in the basic education sector. Approximately 300,000 young people participated. Now, with the second phase, the Basic Education Department has provided employment to over 287,000 youth between the ages of 18 and 35. They have been placed at schools as education or general assistants since November last year, and this will conclude in March of this year. The department is also offering training to these young people in various areas: e-cadres or ICT support, child and youth care workers, reading champions, infrastructure maintenance, and as sports and enrichment agents. Now, let's hear from some of the assistants from the Mpumalanga province.
Hi everyone, my name is Lerato Precious Tony. I currently reside at Shabalala Trust near Bush Paradise. I am a BPsych graduate, honors equivalent, which is Bachelor of Psychology at the University of Venda. Currently, I work as an education assistant at Shabalala Secondary School, which is in RDP Road in Shabalala Trust. I'm going to speak about the program, how it has developed and help me as an individual. After graduating, it's really hard to find work, which is not necessarily knowledgeable for people. We all think that after graduating, life is going to fall out as we plan, but in reality, it is not so. And then I had to realize it after I graduated, which was in 2018. I stayed from 2019 without being employed. Tried going back to school, which didn't work, until currently when the EEI program was introduced by the president. This program as a whole, it really developed me, not only in workplace, but it developed me as an individual. I had to grow as a person. I learned to interact with people in workplaces, actually. That's where I get my real experience of interacting with people in workplaces. It also helped me to interact with learners. I really didn't know at first as in how fun or interesting it can be to engage with learners. And given the fact that I studied psychology, it really helped me to open up with learners, and they also got to open up with me. And I got to understand the depth of learners from their psychological well-being. So it really helped me both in education, it also helped me psychologically. So it grows me in the career that I did. It also grows me in education. I also developed a love for education. I'm thinking of going to study education, by the way. I'm grateful to the Department of Education. I'm grateful to the President for developing such a program. It really helped me and my fellow education assistant NGOs who are in the program currently, because they got a chance to be employed, and it also eradicated employment. So I'm really grateful for the chance.
That's how we end this bulletin on channel 122 on OpenView, on YouTube, and on BRICS TV channel 509 Starset. Until next time, it's goodbye from myself, Tsegoha Moagi, and the entire team. Thank you for watching.